Thank you, David. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. So I'm Charlotte Fowles, I'm the Executive Adventurer, and I've actually just very recently returned from an epic 4x4 adventure in Botswana and Namibia for 3 months. And whilst we were there, you could not actually leave the tent at night because we were very wild in the bush. So there was no going to the bathroom. So I was using a yogurt pot about this size in the tent. So it is a delight to be back in a city and being able to use a bathroom. I'm an adventurer. I'm a 4x4 driver. I'm a scuba diver. I'm a free diver, a hiker, a mentor, a coach, a speaker, an author. I am your biggest no bullshit talking cheerleader. But more than that, I'm a survivor of adventures that I did not choose. 3.5 years ago, as I stood at the edge of a train platform, I knew that I was dying. There was a train coming. Within seconds, I knew I would be under it, and I could rest, and it would be done. And as sure and as certain as I'm standing here right now, I knew in that moment that my life was over. And it was. But not in that suicidal way that I thought in that moment. And that was before I was then diagnosed with stage 3B cancer. I had a year of chemotherapy. I had an operation. That was after the death of my father, my best friend, age 36. I endured multiple miscarriages, operations, and associated trauma. But none of that, as terrible, life-threatening, and tragic as that 10 years was, could actually compare to the debilitating effect of my kryptonite, which was my inner critic. And in freeing myself from this inner critic, I learned how to build an unshakable self-belief and a self-confidence and an inner peace that changes lives. So despite what you see today, and despite what people saw from when I grew up as a child, a naturally exuberant personality, people mistook this for a self-belief or a confidence. And actually, my self-confidence was just almost non-existent. It was very, very low. And I had this inner critic. And it's very, very normal for people to have this. There's many experiences that go up into making this, many voices, many things that happen to us. And I identified it as something nasty, something I didn't enjoy. And I called mine the cockroach, because it had this sneaky, scuttling energy. It was running around in my head, and it was too quick for me to catch. I'd try and stamp on it, but it wouldn't work. And nothing really worked. And it would say a lot of things. Lots of people have these. And it took up a lot of energy and a lot of managing it to, I would achieve things because I knew I was determined enough to push through and do them anyway, but always with this chatter. You're not good enough. Who would listen to you? Why would anyone listen to you? You're too fat, you're too much, you're not enough, you're lazy, you're selfish, just endless. And like I said, it took up a lot of energy and it took up a lot of time. And I never ever thought it was possible to live without a constant critic, a constant doubt, a constant questioning, and a constant judgment. But now I do. And the freedom is just exquisite. And the peace is just beautiful. And I knew that others were trapped. I knew this was a thing. There's a lot of research has been done on it, and I did my own. I interviewed loads and loads of people. I read around the subject. Some of us will know it as imposter syndrome. That's what some people call it. I interviewed CEOs, COOs, Olympic athletes, people that have rowed oceans, you name it. And there was always this theme, this inner critic in there. And so that became my mission. And it's my absolute joy to deliver this work to people today. And what's interesting is no matter what you do, no matter what you achieve, if you have this, it never is quiet. People think, if I just get that promotion, if I just get that pay rise, if I win that race, if I get that accolade, if I do that achievement, then maybe it will be quiet. It doesn't stop. Sometimes it just gets louder. Occasionally, it may pause, and you might get some peace. But for me, in the happy moments and the slightly more fulfilled moments, it was still there. You know, this won't last. This is a fluke. And this is what other people reported as well. But one of the amazing myths that I found through my work with my clients also, I think people are afraid that, well, this is what drives me, proving it wrong. You know, I'm driven by this thing and I just want, and they do achieve, in spite of it, many, many things. And there's this myth, what if I lose it? Then what happens? Do I not ambitious anymore, not driven, not determined? And the beautiful part of this work is that the opposite is true. That just without spending all that time managing it, battling it, dealing with it, you have more time to spend with joy and love, me helping my clients, people doing things that they love, and they're driven by purpose, and they're driven by peace, and they have more time. So I'm going to now talk to you about the method. So that's the mission, to help free others. And I'm going to use the analogy of diving. As a scuba diver and a free diver, it's somewhere that even before I did this work, I found a real deep sense of peace. And I have a system, A through to E, and I'm going to introduce it to you in 3 stages. And this is our A to E of crushing the critic and creating the confidence. So the first stage, A to C. When you're about to dive, I mean, hands up here if anyone's a scuba diver or has dived or anything like that. So very few people. Okay, a few. You can't dive if you're frantically splashing around on the surface. You've got to lower the heart rate. You know, you can't be, that's what we do when we have this striving energy with this critic. You know, it's like we're fighting a current. We're splashing around trying to keep our head above water. And just like with that in a dive, we need to start with this A of assessment and awareness. And it's as if I'm a dive guide and I take these people out of the water and we say, what is the real challenge here? With all this noise that you have with the critic, what's really underneath that? And we develop a higher sense of awareness and we assess that situation. And feel free to close your eyes here if you like, but if anyone has ever swum in the ocean or even dived, and imagine you have no goggles, you have no mask. And the ocean, all the beautiful places where the ocean is very salty and you can't quite see and you're squinting and it stings your eyes and it hurts. It's not comfortable, it's murky, it's not clear, there's something there and you lose your way. That's very much like the beginning of this process. And then someone hands you goggles or a mask. And how much difference does that make, that tool that you have? Suddenly you're able to see so much more clearly. It's a bit like magic. And that's the same with this first stage of the process. You've suddenly given a new way to see. And through seeing things differently, you can do things differently. And enables us to work through the B of this section, which is around breaking things down and looking at those beliefs. The critic thrives on these. It tells you these stories, these beliefs, and we need to look at them. Where is it noisiest? Where are you using your energy? What's happening? And how true is that? Mostly they're not. And so we work on breaking that down. And that's just like with diving. When you start to go deeper, when you calm and you can see properly and you have the proper equipment and you have a guide and you have tools, you start to descend. But there's still things trying to pull you back to the surface. Maybe you've got too much air still, maybe your equipment's not right, but with a guide, keep checking in, come a bit deeper, calm. And that's what that bit of the process is like. And then you're able to look around, and I know when I was a learner, in this work and in diving, you start, it's like you've seen things for the first time. And if you haven't dived, you may have seen a beautiful documentary with fish and beautiful things in it, and it's so clear and it's so beautiful. And when you're seeing all this as a novice in this work, I see people react the way I used to with diving, and the way that any of you that don't dive, I want to shout at you, why aren't you down here? Look at what is here. Look at what your life could be. What on earth are you doing? Why aren't you here? And it's so beautiful. And that's that part. And it's just such a joy to bring that to people. And then with that joy, you're then able to move through what I call creating that optimum environment. So this is your ABC, our first stage. And we know that you've been given tools, you've got a guide, and you need to use them consistently. You know, if you're inconsistent in diving, you're bobbing up all over the place, your arms are flapping around and it's inelegant, it's part of the learning process. Get a bit more consistent, breathe a little deeper, take a little more time. And then, when you look up, you see something very similar to this. If you're somewhere nice and warm. I only dive in warm places, FYI. And I do not like the cold. And you see this shimmering light, and it's the sun, and it feels warm. And when you've gone through that first stage and you feel a bit more relaxed in the work, you can see this light. And in the work, the light is where you want to go. It's your dreams, it's your goals, it's your vision. And without the noise of the critic, without the clutter, without being threatened to pull back to the surface with the world that is constantly wanting to drag you back and teach you what reality is, if you resist that, if you use consistently, you can just keep looking up and see that light. And it's just such a beautiful place to be. And then we move on to the second stage, which is the D, which I would call driving forward with determination. So you've done what I call the heavy lifting of the A to C stage. You're using things a bit more regularly. You know more what you're doing. You still have a guide. And you're able to then dream bigger. You keep looking up at your light. Maybe it keeps getting brighter. Maybe you have more ambition. Maybe you have bigger goals, better dreams. And just like when you get better and better at diving, you're calmer and calmer, and you just keep going. Still, some things try to bring you back up to the surface, but you develop a much bigger self-trust and a feel. And when you're new in diving, sometimes you are flapping about and grabbing the equipment and trying to find out which bit it is, and it's under your arm and it's round here. It's a bit like that at the beginning of the work, but in this D stage, you just calmly reach for the tool that you need, whether that be a metaphorical mask or your dive guide, and you know that it's there. And you have this confidence, this assurance, just that bit more self-belief. And then that allows you to slide into the E, which is your excel. It's the ease of it. It's where you don't have to even think about the first stage anymore. It just becomes, it's just who you are. There's this unshakable self-belief. There's this peace. There's this calm. There's this confidence. Yeah, sometimes there's still a shark or some currents or things that threaten to throw you off course, but you don't panic. It's not like you flip back up to the surface and panic anymore, because you know what you have. And so you've moved through the A to C, the D and the E of crushing that critic and creating the confidence. But what's really, really, really important is that you know it takes courage to keep diving deeper. You know the world will try and pull you back. You know it takes commitment to keep up that momentum. Like anything physical or fitness or anything we do where we develop, you stop it, it stops. So we know it takes some commitment. And it also takes consistency. Consistency to the commitment to yourself to keep going. This is a journey for those fully committed to bravery, to freedom, for those who want to be able to say, I can die happy. And there's a number of ways that if anybody would like to join me on that journey in any way, following, working with, the best thing to do is go to my website and just sign up to the contact form. There you'll hear about all the things that are happening over the next year or so. I'm going to be doing a dive deeper retreat in Indonesia. My waiting list to work together one-to-one will be open, and any other things that I decide that come out of the creative process. Who knows? So the website there, I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm on Instagram. And that's just, the more usual day-to-day, and some of the adventures, be able to see some diving things, you'll be able to see some of the amazing wildlife we saw in Botswana, and I absolutely guarantee and can promise I will not be showing or talking any more about camping toilet habits. Thank you so much.